Hello friends, today we will learn about drugs affecting coagulation, bleeding and thrombosis. So let's start. The term hemostasis means prevention of blood loss. It is the process of forming clots in the walls of damaged blood vessels while maintaining the blood in a fluid state within the vascular system. And it is a complex interaction which includes various phases like vascular phase, platelet phase, coagulation phase and fibrinolytic phase. The another term called as thrombosis is the formation of an unwanted clot within the blood vessel, and it is the most common abnormality of hemostasis. Thrombosis may be arterial or venous. In arterial thrombosis, there is adherence of platelets to arterial walls, while venous thrombosis develops in areas of stagnated blood flow, for example deep vein thrombosis. Arterial thrombosis is usually whitish or yellowish in color because it is made up of fibrin plus platelets, while venous thrombosis is usually reddish in color because it is made up of fibrin plus RBCs. Arterial thrombosis is associated with ischemia, myocardial infarction and stroke, while venous thrombosis is usually associated with congestive heart failure, cancer and surgery. And when this thrombus is dislodged from arteries or veins, it becomes an embolus. And venous emboli can block arterioles in pulmonary circulation, generally known as thromboembolism. The common thrombotic disorders include acute myocardial infarction, also known as heart attack, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, and acute ischemic stroke. And the drugs which are used for treatment of these thromboembolic disorders are anticoagulants, fibrinolytics, and antiplatelets. We will discuss each of these group in detail one by one. Now before learning the anticoagulant drugs, we will review in brief the physiology of coagulation phase. There are two major pathways of coagulation known as intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. And 13 different soluble factors are involved in clotting process including calcium. And some of these steps require presence of platelet phospholipid. The biosynthesis of all these clotting factors occurs in liver, out of which vitamin K is required for synthesis of factor 2, 7, 9 and 10. Most of these factors are protease in nature and normally inactivated, and sequentially they are activated. The hereditary lack of clotting factors may lead to bleeding disorder hemophilia. Hemophilia A is the most common type, which occurs due to deficiency of factor 8, while hemophilia B is also called as Christmas disease and caused by deficiency of factor 9. While hemophilia C is the mild form, which occurs due to deficiency of factor 11. So can you just recall the names of these clotting factors from fibrinogen to fibrin stabilizing factor? So there is a mnemonic to remember all these 13 factors. Freshers party tonight, come let us sing, and cold seniors please have fun. Freshers F for fibrinogen, party P for prothrombin, tonight T for tissue factor or thromboplastin, come C for calcium, let L for labile factor, us U for unassigned, sing S for stable factor, and A for antihemophilic factor A, call C for Christmas factor, seniors S for Stewart power factor, please P for plasma thromboplastin antecedent, have H for Hagman factor, and fun F for fibrin stabilizing factor. The intrinsic pathway occurs in vitro as well as in vivo, and it is a slow pathway, while extrinsic pathway occurs only in vivo and it is a rapid pathway. The intrinsic pathway is activated by contact, and firstly factor 12 is activated to 12A, and the sequence goes on 11 to 11A, 9 to 9A, and factor 10 to 10A. The last step requires presence of calcium phospholipid and activated factor 8. While the extrinsic pathway is activated by tissue injury, and tissue factor or thromboplastin is the first to be active, which then activates factor 7 to 7A and then 10 to 10A. And again, activation of factor 10 requires presence of calcium and platelet phospholipid. The further cascade is known as common pathway, in which the activated factor 10 converts prothrombin to thrombin in presence of activated factor 5, calcium and phospholipid. Now thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin monomers, which are then stabilized to fibrin polymer with help of activated factor 13. Also, the activation of factor 13 involves stimulation by thrombin. And the final clot appears as shown in figure, which constitutes fibrin polymers, red blood cells as well as platelets. Now the factors shown with orange background are affected by anticoagulant heparin, including factor 12A, 11A, 9A, 10A, 2A and 13A. While the factors shown with purple background are vitamin K dependent factors with 2, 7, 9 and 10, and synthesis of which is inhibited by conventional oral anticoagulants like warfarin. The two tests are employed for diagnosis of coagulation defects, namely activated partial thromboplastin time and prothrombin time. The normal value of APTT is 26 to 32 seconds, while that of prothrombin time is 12 to 14 seconds. If the duration of APTT is prolonged and no change in PT, then there is defect in intrinsic pathway. If there is no change in APTT but duration of PT is prolonged, then there is defect in extrinsic pathway. And in case of both are prolonged, then there is defect in common pathway. Coming to anticoagulants, these are the drugs used to decrease blood coagulability, either by inhibiting the action of coagulation factors like thrombin inhibitors such as heparin, or by interference with synthesis of coagulation factors like vitamin K antagonists such as warfarin. Classification of anticoagulants. Anticoagulants are divided into used in vivo and used in vitro. Used in vivo means in intact body. They are again subdivided into parenteral anticoagulants and oral anticoagulants. In parenteral anticoagulants, we have indirect thrombin inhibitors like heparin, low molecular weight heparin, fondaparinux and danaparoid, and direct thrombin inhibitors like lepidudin and bivalirudin. In oral anticoagulants, we have conventional or coumarin derivatives like ticumarol, warfarin, acinocumarol, and indendione derivative like phenindione. And the newer ones, direct factor 10A inhibitor like rivaroxaban and apixaban, and direct thrombin inhibitor like dabigatran ataxilate. We can easily remember the names of direct factor 10A inhibitors. As we write 10 in Roman, it looks like X. So in the spell of direct 10A inhibitors, XA is always present. Anticoagulants used in vitro. Heparin. Heparin is such anticoagulant which is used in vivo as well as in vitro, and also it is the naturally occurring anticoagulant in our body. To use it in vitro means out of the body, about 150 units of heparin are required for 100 ml of blood, and it is available in green colored top container or tube. The others are calcium complexing agents like sodium citrate, sodium oxalate and sodium edetate. Sodium citrate about 1.65 grams for 350 ml of blood is required, and it is used in blood transfusion and available in tube with blue top. Sodium oxalate 10 mg required for 1 ml of blood, and sodium edetate 2 mg for 1 ml of blood. Both of these are used for laboratory investigations and available in containers with grey and purple colored top respectively. Okay, now you may pause for a while and type your answer in comments below. MCQ question which was asked in AIMS November 2010. Which of the following is vitamin K dependent clotting factor? Factor 1, 7, 11 or 12? Heparin. It is the non-uniform mixture of straight chain mucopolysaccharides. Endogenously, it is the strongest organic acid present in the body in mast cells with molecular weight of about 75,000, and mainly it is present in lungs, liver and intestinal mucosa. Just for your information about history of heparin, Maclean, a medical student, discovered in 1916 that liver contains a powerful anticoagulant, and Havel and Holt in 1918 named it heparin because it is obtained from liver, and first time clinically it was used in 1937. Commercially, heparin is obtained from ox lung and pig intestinal mucosa. Heparin is divided in two types, regular or unfractionated heparin with molecular weight of 5,000 to 30,000, and it is given intravenously or subcutaneously. And low molecular weight heparin with molecular weight of about 3000 to 7000, and mostly it is given by subcutaneous route. Mechanism of action of heparin. Heparin is indirect acting anticoagulant which activates plasma antithrombin 3, and heparin antithrombin 3 complex then inactivates the clotting factors 12A, 11A, 9A, 10A, 2A and 13A, but not the 7A. And the overall anticoagulant action of heparin is seen by inhibition of 10A mediated conversion of prothrombin to thrombin and 2A mediated conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. At low concentration, only factor 10A inhibition is exerted. So in short, heparin inactivates clotting factors of intrinsic and common pathway, but not the factor 7A of extrinsic pathway. Thus, low concentration of heparin inactivates up to intrinsic pathway and will prolong the APTT, while high concentration of heparin will also affect the common pathway and will prolong both APTT as well as PT. The antithrombin 3 is a suicidal inhibitor which binds with clotting factors slowly to form a stable complex and inactivate them. Heparin enhances its action by providing a scaffolding or platform for antithrombin 3 and clotting factors to bind with each other. And secondly, by inducing conformational change or a kind of motivation, we can say, in antithrombin 3 to expose its interactive sites by specific pentasaccharide sequence. The inhibition of factor 10A needs only second mechanism, while to inhibit factor 2A, it requires both the mechanisms. So just to remember this, if one wants to come in top 10, then the motivation is sufficient. But when one wishes to come in top 2, then motivation as well as a big platform, both are necessary. Here top 10 denotes inhibition of factor 10A. Motivation means conformational change. Top 2 means inhibition of thrombin, and platform denotes scaffolding. Pharmacological actions of heparin. The first and foremost is as anticoagulant, as we have seen. Second is antiplatelet action, which is seen only at high doses, and heparin is never used as an antiplatelet as the specific drugs are available. And third, lipemia clearing action by releasing the lipoprotein lipase, which is seen at lower concentration of heparin. In pharmacokinetics, heparin is highly ionized in nature, so it is not absorbed orally, but it must be administered either intravenously for instant action or preferably by subcutaneous injection, which is comparatively slow and takes about 60 minutes to initiate the action. Heparin neither crosses blood-brain barrier nor placental barrier, so it is the advantage with heparin that it is safe during pregnancy. In fact, it is the anticoagulant of choice during pregnancy. Heparin follows saturation kinetics. At doses less than 100 units per kg, the half-life of heparin is about 1 hour. But beyond this, it follows zero order kinetics, and the half-life is up to 4 hours. Heparin should never be administered intramuscularly, otherwise hematoma may occur, and it should not be mixed in same syringe with penicillin, tetracycline or hydrocortisone. Adverse effects of heparin. First and foremost is bleeding due to overdose, and hematuria is the first sign of bleeding due to heparin. Remember that bleeding is the commonest adverse effect due to overdose of anticoagulants or fibrinolytics. The other adverse effects include thrombocytopenia due to formation of antibodies against heparin platelet complex, reversible alopecia, then osteoporosis on long-term use of heparin, and hypersensitivity reactions like urticaria, fever, rigor, and even anaphylaxis. The contraindications of heparin are bleeding disorders, severe hypertension, peptic ulcer, piles, subacute bacterial endocarditis, and any malignancy. Heparin should not be used in case of ocular and neurosurgery, in chronic alcoholics, cirrhosis of liver, and it should be used cautiously along with aspirin. Protamine sulfate is a specific antidote for overdose of heparin. It is a mixture of strong basic polypeptides. It binds tightly with heparin and neutralizes its anticoagulant effect when administered intravenously. But 1 milligram of protamine is required for every 100 units of heparin. Low molecular weight heparins. They have molecular weight from 3000 up to 7000. Examples are enoxaparin, ribavirin, nedroparin, dalteparin, etc. Mechanism of action of low molecular weight heparins. They selectively inhibit factor 10A by inducing conformational change in antithrombin 3. So unlike regular or unfractionated heparin, because of low molecular weight, they cannot provide scaffolding which is required for inhibition of thrombin, though they are equally effective in most conditions except during bypass surgery to prevent catheter thrombosis. The advantages of low molecular weight heparins over unfractionated heparin are lesser antiplatelet action, hence lower incidence of hemorrhagic complications. Because of lower molecular weight, better bioavailability on subcutaneous administration up to 90%, and longer duration of action so that once daily dosing is sufficient. And most importantly, laboratory monitoring is not required because acidity and clotting time are little affected. Fondaparinux is the synthetically produced pentasaccharide with specific sequence. The mechanism is similar to low molecular weight heparins. It binds to antithrombin 3 with high affinity and induces conformational change and selectively inactivates factor 10A. Its advantages are 100% subcutaneous bioavailability, longer duration of action, half-life is about 17 hours, and less likely to cause thrombocytopenia compared to even low molecular weight heparins. Because of this, fondaparinux is being increasingly used now. Coming to parenteral direct thrombin inhibitors, lepirudin. It is the recombinant derivative of hirudin, which is present in salivary glands of medicinal leech. Mechanism of action, it binds tightly to both catalytic site and substrate recognition site of thrombin, and it is the irreversible action. Anaphylactic reactions may occur due to lepirudin thrombin complex. Lepirudin is used intravenously in patients at risk of heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Bivalirudin is the synthetic polypeptide and the actions of which are slowly reversible. And argatroban is synthetic non-peptide which binds reversibly to only catalytic site of thrombin, and the duration of action is also short. The half-life is about 40 to 50 minutes. Lepirudin or argatroban are anticoagulants of choice for heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. Lepirudin is safe in liver failure while argatroban can be given in kidney failure. Now let us revise the key points. Unfractionated heparin can provide scaffolding, and that is why it inhibits both factor 10A as well as 2A. While low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux can only induce conformational change in antithrombin 3. That's why they can inhibit only factor 10A. Therapeutic monitoring of unfractionated heparin is necessary by testing activated partial thromboplastin time, and that of conventional oral anticoagulants like warfarin is done by monitoring prothrombin time. While low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux have longer duration of action and more subcutaneous absorption, hence no laboratory monitoring is required. The parenteral direct thrombin inhibitors like lepirudin and argatroban are the anticoagulants of choice for heparin-induced thrombocytopenia, while fondaparinux and danaparoid are alternatives. So that's it for today, and thanks for watching.